Hi guys, this is Kenya Moore with the book Nymph PR and Adventures with Kay and Lee. Today we are live with author Scottie Madden from Zuzu Bean Press, and we have some amazing questions for her today. And I'd like to give you a quick overview of who she is. Scottie Madden has written and created the children's television show Pug and Zero's Field Trip, feature film The Kiss, game shows Do You Trust Me, Duel, On the Cover, and Last to Survive, Prime Time, Blood of Queens, The Other Woman, Out of the Wild, Dude, You're Screwed, and award-winning screenplays. Miss Madden balances her time between being a showrunner in the adventure documentary world, caring for the love of her life, and cooking. All three come together in her writing, with each story a grand adventure from the heart, full of laughter, love, and somehow there's always food. You can find Scottie Madden on Zuzu Press, zuzubean.com, and I'm going to go ahead and introduce you to her right now. Say hello, Scottie.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Kenya.
Hi. Thank you so much for being here tonight. And I've been really excited to see you for weeks.
Yeah, my God. Thank you. Thanks for having me. I've been so excited. I even went and got a root canal today just to get ready.
That's awesome. So good to see you. Is there anything that you'd like to share before the interview?
Wow. Well, yeah, you know, it's an interesting time for us here at Zuzu Bean Press, all two of us, Marcy and I. You know, once we released the book November 10th, it was like we put all 4 feet on the gas and just ripped through the holidays and the launch of a book. We did 7 release and signing parties, and those were amazing. And in the, you know, the chaos or the joyful chaos of the holiday season, it made it so crazy and warm and wonderful, and it kicked the energy level up like 5 or 6 notches above what it would normally be. And we had so much fun. We got to see so many people we hadn't seen in such a long time. And, you know, those things are starting to pay off. A lot of the whole point of it was to make as much noise as we possibly could within our circle of family and friends, so that they would turn around and tell everybody they knew about the book, so that we could start to, you know, gain escape velocity, if you will, for the book to get past the borders of just the people who know us and know me and have been following our story. So all that's now starting to come together. We took a big breath for Christmas and New Year's, and now we're just now getting back into the saddle. So it's exciting. It's an exciting time. So thank you everyone for coming today and joining in this.
Yes, I agree. It isn't a very exciting time. You can find and follow Scottie's tour on her website, zuzubean.com. She has a tour journal blog as well as a writer-to-writer blog. Both are very, very well written and fun to follow. So check that out. You can find pictures and some commentary about each stop. And if you sign up for her newsletter, you can find out where she'll be next.
That's true. Also, anybody that was at any of the tour stops, the tour journal set up as a blog, so that you can all go on there and share your experience. Something that was really exciting that happened at our very last stop in Berkeley, which, you know, we'll get into in just a sec, but my book is about a really personal journey, but nobody's journey is an individual journey. It's a journey of family. And the woman who painted the cover painting that I used to create the cover of the book is dear friend Sally Joy Rubin, and her son is Marcy and I's godson. And she told her side of the story, you know, of coming to the painting, and she told the whole story about that at our last signing, which was at an art gallery, so we were able to debut the painting. But what was mind-blowing for me personally, but also I think fascinating for everybody else, was it was her side of the events that came to the coming of writing a book. And so we wanted to expand that, and we want everyone who had some sort of an experience either from the beginning of the journey, which for most people started when I got a little bit more official with what was going on with Marcy and I's life last December. But also just seeing us at any of these events. You can go on to the tour journal page, go to the tour stop that you attended, and write in your story. And what I'll do after I collect all of them is I'll change the format of the tour journal so that those have a little bit more permanence and they're highlighted a little bit more, as rather than just random thoughts that they're the other side of the story, because that's what was so fascinating. And it really taught us, and especially me, that there is no woman is an island.
Yes.
To be cliche.
Well, yeah, that's pretty fascinating, and I cannot wait to see how that all turns out. So everyone, make sure you stop by and take a look at that. Scottie Madden is the author of the book Getting Back to Me, From Girl to Boy to Woman in Just 50 Years. And we are going to talk about a little bit about her personal journey, as well as what it's like to be a writer. This is her first book, and there are many more to come. So we're going to go ahead and get started and ask her a few questions. So let's start with, when did you get the idea to write Getting Back to Me?
That came about at a sort of a debut, as Marcy would say, a debutante party. A good friend of ours, and I write about this in the book too, by the way, so forgive me if some of you have heard this story, but a good friend of ours had a problem wrapping her head around the whole idea that I was not the boy that she thought I was, and not the man that was married to one of her best friends, Marcy. And this woman really held us up, and held me up in particular as a role model for how men could be in a loving relationship. Something I was proud of. I wasn't doing it as a man, but I knew what a woman would want. So of course, Marcy had the dream romance, because I played the white knight. And so it took her coming to actually physically be with me, because a lot of people get this news when people come out. A lot of times they're not in a physical place together, so it has to be over the phone, and it just rocked her world. And so she had to come up and physically be with us. Well, she was for the weekend, and once she was around me, she saw that, oh my God, it's still the same you that I was in love with. You just look a hell of a lot better. So she said, there's some people in San Diego. Marcy and I started our relationship in San Diego, so it's kind of like our home base. I was born there. She said, I'm going to host a party for you, because if everybody down there could have the same experience I had, which is to be with you and just see that you're the same you, only better, then it'll be great. So we did, and it was incredibly lovely. And one of the couples that came was actually Marcy's matron of honor, and her husband. And her husband is this great man, and we've been dear friends for a long time, and he and I. And but as soon as we started, I didn't realize that at one point the party swung to the Inquisition, and everybody, like, all the niceties were off, all the gloves came off, and we got really real, and it became a firing line of questions, and they were deep, like, what about this, and what about that, and how come this, and how come that, and they all demanded an answer. And they have a right, sort of. They're the stewards of our relationship and our marriage. And, there was a part of me that was going, hey, slow down, it's me too, but there was some responsibility was necessary on my part for that, for sure. So I satisfied everybody's questions, and they could all see that this wasn't about me being selfish. This was about something I had no control over, but I did have control over how I would do it, and that I was doing it with Marcy in lockstep with me every step of the way, because we love each other, and that's what you do for someone who you love. You don't blow up their world any more than you have to. Granted, there's a lot that's changed. But at the end of this, my friend David said, you know, he was satisfied with having all the answers to his questions, and he looked at me and he goes, well, okay, so are you writing any of this down? And I realized that A, I'd answered all of his questions in a really satisfactory answer, and that was a good thing for others to hear. And that B, he was absolutely right. I'm a writer. I write television, I write feature films, I've written all my life. Duh. Why hadn't I written it as a book? So I started that weekend, and it took me 2 months and of hardcore 14-hour-a-day writing sessions, and it all came out. And then the process of editing, started next. But so yeah.
Wow, 2 months.
2 months.
To write your life story. Well, it does. Where does Getting Back to Me start? Does it start from what? There's a lot of journal entries in Getting Back to Me from times of your travels and things like that, correct?
Yes. What it was is I took. I needed to give it some sort of a narrative. Full confessions. I'm a professional storyteller, and I'm not going to tell a story unless it's worth the audience's time. There's nothing. The worst thing that we can do is be boring. And the second worst thing we can do is be unclear. There's a lot of people who put that first, but some people get away with it. Darren Aronofsky. Wait, did I say that out loud? Anyways, so I wanted to give it a narrative structure. And really, as I started to kind of think about how to do this, where the story really turns and becomes an understandable beginning, middle, and end is a year ago, August. That's when I was coming home from completing the production of the second season of one of the greatest television experiences of my life, also one of the hardest. Dude, you're screwed. I mean, right there, you can't make this stuff up. So I had to go with what you got, right? So it starts there, and all of my journal entries are the chapter beginnings, as well as some of the chapter corner turns within, but in a chronological fashion from a year ago August to a year ago May, right up until the time I started writing it. So, and then each of those journal entries have an incredible resonance in the way that my formal coming out started to unfold. And it took on a life of its own, and it had a time schedule because I was preparing the entire time for getting my next job. If you haven't been in television or you haven't been in the freelance world, you might not understand this, but the rhythm and pace of our life is dictated by getting a job, doing the job, finally figuring out after years of falling into the doldrums afterwards that you should probably start looking for your next job before the job you're on ends. There's a brief chance to catch your breath. Some of us only take a day, others take a week, some actually go on a vacation, which is bizarre for us because we never like to spend money. And then getting the next job and starting all over again. And your entire life can pass you by. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I called live from a mountaintop in Chile over a satellite phone to tell my nephew I was going to miss his graduation. So, that sounds cool, but it's actually more messed up than you can imagine, because all you're aware of is that you're missing both things. You're really not there on top of the mountain, and you're really not there at the graduation.
Yeah. So
so all you have is your professionalism. So anyways, that's a long way around to say that it has to have a beginning and a middle and an end, and so that's where I started it. And then once I got into each of those chapter entries, the resonance of them fulfilled telling all of the backstory necessary for the reader to understand why this new event is going to have the resonance that it's about to have. Because that's what you want to do as a writer, right? You want to help the audience feel as they're crossing the finish line the same elation that the main character is having.
Yeah.
Maybe more. You know, they know a little bit more about the race than the main character does. So that was kind of the challenge of writing a memoir, you know, is not being God too far in front of the narrative, or the audience is going, hey, what's going on here? You know?
Yes. So. Okay. So that pretty much leads into talking about what you did before you started writing.
Yeah. Well, I've been in television for over 30 years. I know I only look 16. I only act 15. I just got my driver's license. Oh, no, I'm kidding. Yeah, I've been, you know, I worked my way up through the ranks. I started as in the technical side of things as a camera operator and in grip and lighting and, you know, recording audio and doing all those things. The odd thing is that all of that stuff was kind of like, this is going to sound odd, so bear with me. And for all the professionals in the audience, I apologize. But it was like having a paper route in that it was the chore that I did while I was earning enough money to, you know, go be a producer and a director. Producers and directors are the ones that get to make all the decisions. It's the whole reason why they're the ones who decide what book we're going to write. I mean, you know, as an author, you go, I'm going to write about this, and everybody goes, great, go, can't wait to read it. The only people who get to do that in the television world are the producers and the directors, and that's not even that easy. It's not a slam dunk, because you're going to convince a whole lot of people that the story you're going to tell is worthy of all of their effort, right? The writer gets to just go, no, I'm going to write this, and I'm going to go shut myself in a room for however long it takes and write this, and no one says no. So that's what I knew I needed to do. So I worked my way up. But the thing is that as paper routes go, it's really cool because a camera, a video camera especially, an American television camera is the biggest master key on the planet. It opens doors like you cannot believe. And those doors lead onto airplanes that take you to exotic places. Those doors open up secret caves into samadhi shrines of spiritual leaders that you never knew of. I mean, it was, you know, trust me, it was a great paper route. And then I started editing. I didn't really plan on editing. It kind of was, thank you, Jimmy and Ira, if you're watching this, foisted on me. No, you're going to edit this. And I was like, we've got a show to do. And so I had to learn how to be an online editor really fast. But all of that was part of the process of, you know, it seems like it should have been my plan and it had intention behind it. But as a director and as a writer, I've always saw myself in the visual fields. It made sense that I should have done that. Now that I have done it, it's the greatest thing in the world, because when I talk to my crews, I know what I'm talking about, and they know I know what I'm talking about. I'm not just some knucklehead who's asking them for something that I haven't probably done myself.
Yeah.
You know, as I say, with been there, done that with heavier equipment, you know.
Yeah.
So you know, and writing was always a part of it. Now I've only written screenplays, and you know, or the other variations of a television script that are the tools that we use to produce television, voiceover scripts and those sorts of things. And I, you know, average about 5 or 6 of those a year. Some were specs, some were ideas that I just needed to get going, and others were ones I needed to actually do. I had my own children's series for a while, so my partner and I wrote all the scripts for those. I would write half, he would write half, and then we'd swap and then write the other. So I've always written, and I've developed a discipline as a writer that, you know, are my stock and trades. Those are my skills I have. It's discipline, it's dedication, and it's experience that I have with all that. This was the first time I ever pointed it at a book. But the skill set was the same, you know. You still got to go in and do it, and you still got to hold a narrative line for the reader, or the reader will go, I don't get it. So
yes, yeah, I totally agree with you. So how do you balance your new life as a writer with other areas of your life?
True confessions, not well right now. No. The thing about self-publishing that I try not to think about, but I do write about in my Writer blog, is that we're chief cook and bottle washers. We are an army of one, or one plus, as you, Kenya. Thank you very much for your help. There's an incredible amount of material and content that you suddenly have to generate, and if you think about it, you'll just drown. And that's all part of the game. For me, because of the subject matter of my book, and because of the amount of activism necessary in this world, in our society right now, as I discovered in each tour stop, I had an experience of someone who falls into our new alphabet tribe, and needed sometimes just an ear, but there's a lot more work that needs to be done. And that's an interesting facet of my life that all of a sudden came in that I didn't really plan on. But again, if I'd have opened my eyes and paid attention, that's what I would have done. I'd try not to think about it. I try to just put one foot in front of the other and do it. So, I'm balancing it in the same way that I would any kind of a production, and that's that you just break it down. There's such an enormous amount of work to produce a TV show that if you think about it, you're done. You've already been hit by the set wave, so you need to just, it's borrowing from my surfer days, you just got to scratch in and stand up, girl, and ride that wave. And the other thing that always gets me is there's a ton of people in this business and in the writing world that talk about it, and I never wanted to be the person who talked about writing but didn't write. Yes. So I writers write, so that's what I do. I write, and luckily I have some fantastic mentors, really supportive coaches, and co-conspirators that keep me honest about it. But it's what we do.
Good, that's great. It's really good to have mentors and supporters, because writing is a very solitary thing to do. So it's good to have people outside of that can help you get through it. So do you have a writing process? You said you did 14-hour days. Did you have to get in the mood or have a certain place to do it or anything like that, or did it just come naturally?
Well, there's two answers to that. One is over the years and over the locations that I found myself in, if I had to have a process, I would have died, because sometimes I'm in a boat for 8-hour ride to get to the other, and that's 8 hours you could either spend staring out the window, which is fun to do, or you can be writing. And so I've learned to write anywhere I can. I don't need to have the conditions perfect. But when I am heavily in the mode, I call it getting into the chair. And it's real important for me to keep up with my my morning practices, meditation and exercise. I have the type of body that can get out of shape really fast. So I go for a walk with my wife, or I'll go for a mountain bike ride. I kind of alternate with those so that I have some form of heavy duty cardio. I live right below Dirt Mulholland, so I can ride my mountain bike out about 30 feet and suddenly I'm on an intense bike ride. And so if I maintain that practice and do that every day, then that propels me out into the shower, propels me, get my makeup on, get my hair done so that I'm not stressing that I look ugly, and then come in with a fresh brewed cup of coffee, sit down, put on the headphones. I've got a pretty extensive playlist because it'll go for about 3 weeks before it repeats, and go. Depending upon what I'm writing, the process can be, for a script, I'll block out in paragraph form the beats that I see in a 1 hour usually is the script I'm writing, or a 2-hour feature. Those beats, and they fall into a series of acts. I've got a pretty good internal gut that goes, that's enough of that before we need to turn a corner. And then once I take the paragraph, I dump it all into my screenwriting software, and I just take a paragraph and write over it, now in dialogue and action, now in dialogue, and I just keep pushing it down until finally I push all the paragraphs out of the bottom end of the screenwriting software, and I have a story. Once I get through that process, you know, that I can ride that momentum clear up until about 1 o'clock, make some lunch for myself, take a little bit of a head break. When I come back in, my head has changed a little bit, and I'm usually more in a technical kind of a mind frame. And that's when I'll kind of go over what I've written in the morning and look at it a little bit more critically, and then move on. If I'm writing against a deadline, my internal clock seems to know when to push that technical part off until it's absolutely time, and I'll continue on what I call spilling, or just spilling out the story. Let it all roll out as fast as I can, and I try not to edit it at that point. Then when I go into the technical side of things, I've got something to edit. The book was a little bit different. The book was a process of, since I had really firm markers of my journal entries, those were balanced against what was actually happening. For example, excuse me for a second, you know, the whole process of going through a name change, a legal name change, that kind of, you know, came into the process of the back end of it while I was writing the book. A lot of it had happened beforehand, and so it was just captured in my journal entries, but I was smart enough to take my journal with me in some of those instances, because I had already at this point started thinking, I should be writing a little bit more of this down than I normally would. And that process changed. So since I was living it as I was writing it, I would write as much as I could, and sometimes I had to kind of almost forget where I had been writing in chapter 3, for example, and catch up with my real-time life in chapter 7 and write that down, and have the faith that my journal markers would keep me in pace with the timeline. And whenever I would get a little bit scared, I'd have to just actually say to myself, just shut up and write, girl. You know, it'll be okay. Your journal keeps you in line. I would write all day. So different than a screenplay in that I would basically stay in a spilling mode all day long. And then I would print it out at night, and then I would read it to Marcy. And I write a chapter about this in the book. That process of reading her that chapter at night was the first time I got to hear a lot of my sentences, and some of them were just, you know, rubbish. I didn't know what I was trying to say. So those got pointed out pretty quickly. But it also put both of us back smack dab in a very emotional chapter of our lives, almost without warning. It was like an enforced contemplation of the process that we were going through. And that was interesting because some of the stuff was painful, and some of it was a rehashing of issues that we sort of pretended at the time that we'd solved, or hoped at the time that we'd solved. We suddenly had it back in our life. And so we'd have to get it solved. Sometimes it didn't get solved till the next morning. The last little bit that needed to be said between lovers, so that I could go and write again the next day. And then start the next day the exact same schedule, you know. So I spilled it all out in one pass. Then I did a total pass by myself. And what's odd, and first-time writers remember this, it was at that point, after I had an entire manuscript, that I then put it into a process that would give me a word count, and I'm embarrassed to say this, the formatting that would make it into a book. And I had over 140,000 words that suddenly I needed to format. And I had some feedback from a really good friend of mine, and she said, you know, what is it with these ellipses? Because I was writing a stream of consciousness kind of vibe. And so she said, you know, these ellipses they're driving me nuts. And the italics, they're even worse. Get rid of those. And so I tried, because I had 140,000+ word document. It was over 400 pages, single spaced. I did a command all change on ellipses, and it blew out every comma and every period in the entire manuscript. I wanted to commit suicide. I was like, oh my God, what has happened? It was the worst thing that could have ever happened to a writer. But I didn't have time to worry about how hideous that was. So I just dumped it into my screenwriting software and tried my best to go on the fly and put these back in. And to this day, my wife thinks I don't have no idea how to use a comma. She was right, because I tried to go in there and put them back in after the fact, you know. It was so don't ever do this, kids. Don't do a command all anything on your book. Oh my God, it was hideous. So that was part of the writing process I probably should leave out, but
no, that was perfect. Yeah, everyone, please remember that, because I've done that before too.
Right? Where were we for each other when that happened? Oh my God, you know.
Yes. So getting back to me, deals with your personal experience with coming out as transgender. Mm-hmm. So what does transgender mean to you?
Well, thanks for asking, because that's a really interesting word. It's hey, you know, we're flavor of the month, at least for 2015. Thank you, Caitlin. Let me say this, a bit of a caveat or a disclaimer. This phenomenon is so charged on both sides, both on the interior side of a person that's transgender, and for the families directly connected to it, and for those who feel so self-righteous that they can point their fingers at someone and decree that for some reason they don't get to have what humans in this great country of ours have as their natural birthright. So I don't pretend for a moment to speak for everybody, okay? And what I'm going to say has a bit of a dichotomy, and I go into this a little bit in the book, and maybe hopefully I said it as more eloquently there than I'm fumbling with here now, but I never had the word transgender to describe what I was. I'm a woman. And to hear the timbre of this voice and this form that a lot of people used to know of as being pretty boyish is odd. Sure, we've been taught it's odd. I've been taught that it's odd. I've been taught that I wasn't ever supposed to tell anybody that. And certainly I had the world kind of validating that, because when I did, they would look at me like I was crazy or insane or worse. Right. So when I say I'm a woman, that's how I regard myself. I'm a woman who fought really hard to be a woman, for sure. I didn't ever have the label trans or transgender. And when I saw what some people thought was transgender, I tried some of those on, and none of them fit. And yet they seem to fit for other people. So that's what makes this a longer than normal answer to what seems like a simple question. And that's because each of us has a way that we want to be regarded in the world. And mine is woman. When I write a book about it, and I volunteer at the LGBT Center in Los Angeles, the term transgender gets us out of the parking lot and into the conversation, right? We don't have to get lost in labels and details, because everybody goes, oh, okay, you're trans, okay, you gotta get it. Moving on. What would you like to have for dinner? You know, so I say that, and even to say trans woman, or to write it in print, or I've written it in print myself to write the verbiage on the back of the book, is still odd for me. It still doesn't resonate, because I'm a woman. And like I said, I'm a woman who fought really hard to get to where I'm at. So I also, because I feel so strongly about that, I will fight to the death for another person to have their definition be whatever they want it to be. And if they tell me, well, no, I'm a trans woman, I'm like, yes, you are. You say you are, and I will fight for you to be that. That's cool. Or I'm a lesbian, or I'm gay, or I'm a whatever, you know. I'm heterosexual, cisgendered, whatever, which makes people freakish these days. So it's an odd question, only because I don't, as a person, never allowed myself to settle for the simple just because it was what was going to be simple. Maybe that's to my detriment. Ask some of my teachers. Ask Gerhard for sure. But I'm, you know, the clarity of that and the shades of gray of that are what make life unique and beautiful in all of its forms. So that's what transgender means to me.
Well, thank you very much. That was a very eloquent answer. And I'm sure that it will help a lot of people understand the, you know, how layered that question is. And so the next question is, why do you think people have a hard time differentiating between sexual orientation and gender identity?
Well, okay, again, these are theories. Why I had, you know, I had to go through this education process myself. So I completely understand someone making the mistake once. And then once it's pointed out to them, then they don't need to make that mistake ever again. But here's the difference. And I'm going to borrow, I wish I remember who gets the credit for saying this the first time. But the difference is that your gender is who you go to bed as. Your sexuality is who you go to bed with. Okay?
That's good.
So why do people have that problem? And I think it's because for some people, those two things have been so locked together. My wife just came home. Those two things have been so locked together that they never looked like they were apart. When in truth, they're two different things. So if you don't know that they're two different things, to you they just look like one, right? It's not until somebody says, hey, they're completely different. The truth is they are completely different, and there's no debate about that. So though you, I don't mean you, but though someone might have an issue with it not being educated about that, sure, if you have never thought about what it's like to be blind, you might have thought about it, but you've never experienced it, you have no idea how hard it would be to describe blue to someone who's never seen before. Right? So, yeah, that's, you know, a person who's blind doesn't have any concept about what blue, why blue is relevant, right? They're like, well, what does it matter, right? But that's the mindset that is you know, in that equation. If you've never seen that they're different, then you can't imagine that they are. But being told that, here's where the conversation in this situation changes. Is like, once you're told that, though, all bets are off. You don't get to confuse them anymore, because that confusion and the maintenance of that confusion and the holding on to that confusion is what's causing all the problems for anybody, any diverse peoples in our country throughout our history. Just picked on set of people, and the reason why they continued to get picked on was because the people who were doing the picking held on to their, oh, I don't understand, like it was some divine right to remain confused. You don't get that right. We are evolutionary creatures, and we move forward. we don't get to remain in our ignorance, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree. So when did you start noticing your own gender identity?
Yeah, you know, I have to do this in retrospect, and that's what I think started me to realize that no matter what I did as an intelligent adult, I was never going to think my way out of this. And that's that I never had an issue until the age of 4 of being what I was, which was a girl. I wasn't treated by my parents as a quintessential boy. I don't even remember blue blankets, you know, I mean, there may have been, it doesn't matter. Nothing, until the age of 4, you're not, and even if someone puts a hammer in your hand and says, go pound on the bench, or a baseball bat in your hands, you're still not really exhibiting any behavior that says that you're one gender or the other. But at about the age of 4, when I realized that something was wrong, that these, you know, once I saw pink rain boots, when all I had seen were black rain boots until that point, suddenly I see pink ones, I go, well, those are mine. I want those. And when I put them on, hellfire broke loose. It was so emotionally scarring, you know. I'm admitting this now, and only after, you know, years of dealing with this have I finally figured it out. But it was a point that said, you're wrong for doing that. This simple act, I was so wrong, and was told never to ever do that again, or I would be in trouble. And then there was a reinforcement of that on any other kind of behavior that I just exhibited that was like that. And here's the key. It wasn't my parents doing this. It was a babysitter who thought that he was protecting his image of my father in his own head. He thought my father would have a problem with this. So that was at the age of 4. So that's the only thing I can do to answer your question, because it's so long ago. That's the very first time where I realized, you don't tell anybody that you're a girl. You just don't. It'll be the worst thing that could ever happen if you do. So I lived the rest of my life realizing that I'm not supposed to tell anybody that this is who I am, even though I'm doing this. And then it really kind of pushed me back into a space of observing what do boys do. Okay, I'm gonna do what boys do. That's what boys do. And so everything I did, And, you know, if you talk to my friends now, they're all kind of sewing stuff back together. And there's a lot of them who've admitted, yeah, there was something weird about you. Now, mind you, I wasn't weird like serial killer weird, you know. But they never understood why I wanted to do things a certain way. And girls never understood why I wanted to do certain things their way. No one, you don't fit in either camp. And so you kind of get pushed into this place and you go, okay, I'm just going to live in here because I can't live out here. And so that's when you start realizing that you're different. And the times where it starts to really form and you really start to get cohesive thoughts that seem to be gender-based or what we would feel are gender-based is right around, you know, for me it was like pre-puberty was when it started to form, and then puberty hit and freaking hormones start blowing up in your body, and so it goes all over the place. It's squirrely all over the place, and you feel ultra sexualized as a female one day and ultra sexualized as a male the next day, and you're feeling guilty about that. Then you feel ultra sexualized about being a female the next day, and you feel guilty about that, like, and you're just trying to please everybody. I mean, I'm the oldest child, firstborn. I'm the only son. I have 3 little sisters that I'm put in the charge of their care for. So I've got a job to do here. So in the middle of all this chaos, I also can't tell anybody that I'm going through this chaos because I'm supposed to have my feces cohesive. So you do. You figure out a way to get through it. Once I started to get older and got through puberty, you know, that's when you really start to, your mental intellect is able to start to weigh out what these thoughts and feelings are and go, you know, this is the feeling it feels like because I can't be who I am, which is a woman. So then you start to get really clear that that's what it is. I mean, when I look at transgender children today and, you know, like the little, what the parents thought was a little girl who had been deaf from birth and was getting cochlear implants, the first words that she says is, I'm a boy. You know, to be that clear at the age of 5, you know, about what your gender identity is amazing. I was clear at that age that I wasn't supposed to tell anybody. So I was clear what my gender was, but I was clear also not to tell anybody what it was. So that's a long answer, but there it is.
Thank you. Yes, a lot of your, all of your reviews are 5 stars on Getting Back to Me. And everyone that has taken the time to write the review has spoke about how moving it is to hear this from your perspective of this journey that you've taken. And what we like to know is, who was your greatest supporter through all of this?
Oh, my wife.
Yeah, that's pretty clear as well through the reviews. Is you know, a resounding thank you to your wife for supporting you. So, you know, it's just amazing, and I could already tell that would be your answer. So,
yeah, I mean, but I don't want to run past the importance of that though, because her support. You know, there's lots of stories like mine that don't end well. There's lots of stories like mine that end in really horrendous, bad, despairing ending. And it was her willingness and trust me, she did not start off as an advocate. she tried to have me cured, you know. But that's also what I hope people get as the example. I mean, what I wish for every woman or man who goes through what I've been through is to have someone like my love who stared down her own fear. She stared her own fear right in the face and hit it with love, and was able to calm her fears enough to use her intellect to open up the way for her heart to live what it knew was true, which was that we were in love, and that this was all about love, and that though her white knight was going to ride side saddle now, I wasn't going to change our love. In fact, it's going to be better because I was going to be happy, and I was going to be able to live my life completely fulfilled too. So that's the support. You know, I'm still in a process of completely remapping my entire psyche. Every thought now before every thought went through a filter of why not, why not, why no, why not. Now it goes through a filter of really? Okay. And thoughts that I had all my life, I'm re-examining, going, why did you have that thought? Why did you have that belief? Every sensation, every feeling, they're all being re-examined right now. They're being re-examined through a filter of love and joy, but it's still, you know, it's a little disorienting. And Marcy continues to support me through all of that. You know, and help me pick out lip gloss. So there's that.
That's amazing. So is there anything that you wish the world knew about you?
Well, outside of the, you know, that I wish that they knew where to buy my book so they would go buy it. Well, I think what I wish the world knew, and a lot of the world is starting to come around to this, but what I wish they knew is that this is not a choice. The choice I made, and the choices I made throughout my entire life, were to not be who I was.
Yeah.
So the only choice I made was to stop pretending. And I wish the world knew, or would at least think about, you know, I am one of the most successful adventure filmmakers, certainly not the most, for sure. There's far more successful and some better than me at the game, but not a lot. And I pay my taxes and I do all those things. You know, when a trans person comes out, they didn't just parachute in from another planet. They were supporting this society called the United States of America, or whatever their own country that they're in, with all of their heart and their soul. And that doesn't change. There's absolutely no reason or justification for any kind of discrimination against anyone, and certainly not trans women and trans men. It's ludicrous for me to think that someone gets any kind of a pass on that at all. We as a society should be supporting anybody for being authentically who they are, because that's what we do. That you want to talk about the Constitution, you want to talk about the Bill of Rights, that's what that says. It doesn't say anything else other than that. So that's what I wish everyone knew. That ended a long time ago, and we're working now feverishly to right the wrongs on all levels in our society.
Thank you very much. I agree with you. So Scottie, what are you working on next?
Well, if you read the rest of my blurb on my website that I wrote, apparently I'm working on a cookbook. No. I didn't realize that as I was writing my book about, you know, oh my God, I've been working through gender dysphoria through cooking. Duh! You know? So I have been assembling a cookbook, and I just recently started rewriting the introduction. It's a whole philosophy about how I run my kitchen, and I've been kind of taking notes about things, and it's because whenever I host a dinner party, even if it's just another couple that comes over for us, I get asked like, "What is this? And how did you make it?" And everybody's fascinated by that. And I've always been very passionate about cooking, so I'm working on that. I'm working on a TV pitch for based on Getting Back to Me. That's called The Other Woman, and it's a drama. And I'm really excited about that. I think it gives us the perfect platform to discuss the issues that aren't getting discussed in some of the other shows that focus on the LGBT world, and how it fits into our larger American society. And I've always got Getting Back to Me follow-up going on because I'm keeping my journal. So a lot of the stuff that's happened along the way has been super juicy, and definitely the fodder for another book. And in the meantime, Marcy and I are putting together an entity that's, I think we're going to make Zuzubean Press, and what it has come to stand for in the last month and a half through holding the event signings. How we take this process of love that we used, so that it can be brought to others, because that's the bulk of the Q&A sessions at the end of any of the book events, signing events that we held, all went to that. I mean, we had people, accusing us of not realizing that I had written a love story, which I loved. I loved that they were that passionate about it. That's exactly what I wanted to say, is that I'm writing a love story, and I'm glad that somebody picked that up. But since it was picked up that way, I think we want to talk about that a little bit more, because one thing we're realizing is that the process of Getting Back to Me is not just about transgender issues or your own personal identity. It's a bigger picture, and we know this from people telling us this, that how our book helped them. One of my favorite stories is my friend Scottie. Sco, I hope you're watching. Well, thank you, my love. Marcy just brought me a cup of coffee.
Very sweet.
Scottie said that she got really angry when Marcy first told her that I had come out to her. And she was also another woman who had really held me in high esteem as being hope that there was a man out there that could love her as much as Marcy's Scottie loved her. But she was really angry when she was told this, and she went home and she told her mother how angry she was with me for having done this. And her mother, Southern woman, looked at Scottie and said, "Well, can you imagine how difficult it must have been to live for 50 years with a secret that deep? How painful that must have been." And Scottie wrote me, "So thank you for showing me a side of my mother, a compassionate, hip, open-minded side of my mother that I never knew existed." So, that's kind of a really oblique angle and connection to someone who's touched by our story. So any writer wants to hear that their story goes universal, right? So I'm proud of that. I'm proud that we were able to put together a story that people can see, that, because not everybody's, we're 0.03% of the U.S. population is trans, so that narrows the audience right there. It's got to be a universal story. So that's what I'm really proud of, and that's what I'm gonna, fulfill in the next book for sure.
Oh, that is really sweet. I'm very proud of you. It's been such a it's been such a pleasure just to meet you and to read your work and see all of the great reviews that are coming in. And I just want you to have so much success. And I'm really excited about all of your upcoming projects. The drama about the other woman, that sounds like I would watch that every episode. For sure. So I know it's going to happen. So just a matter of when.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes. So thank you so much for being here tonight. Like I said, I've been looking forward to this for weeks, and it's good to see you. You look beautiful, and and I'm glad you were able to answer all of our questions. It's very poignant, and I just want to make sure everyone knows where to find Getting Back to Me.
Okay.
It is available on Amazon.com, as well as you can order copies on Scottie's website, which is zuzubean.com. I will make sure that there are links in the description, so you can see this video on the YouTube channel, as well as Scottie's website. So yeah, go buy that now because it's great. Like her writing style is so crisp and raw that you will not be able to put it down. So yes, go get that now.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. It's 100% true with all 5-star reviews, and she's been in the Amazon bestsellers list since day one. So they do not lie. Those numbers don't lie, and those reviews are 100% real. So yeah, go check that out. And one of the best gifts you can give to an author is a review. So make sure you write one of those when you're done.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you so much. We will, like I said, we'll put the links in the comments, and we will see you guys next time. Do you have any closing words?
Just, I want to thank everybody for their incredible support. Every time I get it, I never thought about it when I wrote the book, that when I sign at the book signings and then look someone in the eye, that I'm now telling you, here's my life. I'm putting it in your hands. So, but the response to it has been phenomenal, and the love and the support from everybody has just been a little overwhelming. But don't stop. It's really, really delicious. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, and thank you, Scottie. Make sure you follow her on Twitter. It's Scottie Jeanette. And you can find her on Facebook at facebook.com/zuzubeanpress. Yes. All right. And we will see you guys next time. Have a good night.
Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.